William Morrow and Harper Audio present The Islanders, a novel, by Meg Mitchell Moore, performed by Courtney Patterson. Part 1. August, Block Island. Prologue. "It was disconcerting to see a man cry like that," said Bridget Fletcher. "Oh, for heaven's sake," said Pauline Morrison, who thought that Bridget could be a bit soft at times, probably because of her youth, and also because she hadn't grown up on this island, as Pauline had. Growing up on an island toughened you. That was common knowledge. Why shouldn't a man be able to cry? I'd be crying in that situation. Anyone would. "You're not a man, though," said Bridget reasonably. "That's what made it all seem uncomfortable. It seemed like such a private thing. He was just heaving. The sobs were coming out of him in waves. They were racking his entire body." Pauline knew that Bridget was enrolled in an MFA course at Boston University that would begin in the fall. It was her private opinion that Bridget talked as though she were speaking lines from a novel she hadn't yet written, and Pauline, who was as well read as the next guy, was used to a more plain-spoken way of communicating. That's what years of island living did to you. You learned not to waste anything. Not food, not heating oil, not time, not words. "I don't blame him 1 inch," answered Pauline stoutly. "I don't either, of course not," cried Bridget. Young people were so eager, weren't they? Especially young women. Pauline found it annoying and refreshing in equal measure. Retaining a feel for youth was why Pauline enjoyed her friendship with Bridget, as unlikely as it was. It had only come about because she and Bridget's aunt, Leona, who owned the house on Payne Road where Bridget was staying, rent-free, lucky thing, had been friends at Vassar all those years ago. Leona, she lived in Boston most of the year, running some big-time charitable organization, had asked Pauline to keep an eye on Bridget. So, dutifully, once a week, Pauline invited her for coffee at the whoopie pie shop on Dodge Street. It was a cloudless day toward the middle of August, the wind light and out of the southeast, the water clear as glass. Down on Fred Benson Beach, nearly all of the umbrellas were rented out already, and 2/3 of the boogie boards. It was amazing how quickly people forgot there had been a storm. "I'm not saying he shouldn't have cried," said Bridget. "Obviously he felt responsible. So on top of the grief, there was all of that guilt. I'm just saying it's a disconcerting thing to watch, that's all. It was so raw. I can't get it out of my head, the sound of it." In her own head, Pauline began composing the email to Leona. "Checked in with Bridget," she'd write. "All seems well. We're about cleaned up from the storm." "Well, you're going to have to get it out of your head and move on," she said aloud. "You've got to be at work in half an hour, right?" Bridget seemed not to have heard her. "It was just over a week ago." "Isn't that hard to believe?" Bridget pressed her palms into the table and regarded Pauline seriously. "You have to admit, it's hard to believe." Pauline shrugged. Except for the flooding out on Corn Neck Road, really, this storm hadn't been as bad as it could have been. Though it seemed like it had come out of nowhere. That was true. For that, people blamed global warming, or they blamed the new president, or they blamed the capricious nature of this particular storm, which had changed direction at the last minute, barreling toward the island without so much as a by your leave. Even so, this was nothing like Hurricane Bob in '91. That had really been something. Pauline said as much to Bridget. Bridget giggled. "I wasn't even born until '94. Pauline snorted. The fact that somebody who was born in 1994 was old enough to be headed to graduate school and hold down a job was just ridiculous. How old Pauline was getting. Bridget's face turned serious again. "It's just that
Sample complete. Ready to continue?